This system automatically creates a business proposal based on a short internal form, helping teams move faster without having to start from scratch every time. Let me show you how it works in practice. We start with a really simple internal form. It's designed so that anyone on the team can quickly fill it out when a proposal needs to be created. First up, we enter the basics, the person's name and the company the proposal is for. Next is the type of service. In this example, I'm selecting chatbots from the list. These are set up as radio buttons, so the user just chooses the one that fits. Behind the scenes, this selection helps determine which base template the system will use later on. And then we get to the short description field, which is actually the most important part. In this case, I've added some rough notes from a client call. It's not polished, it's just what was jotted down at the time. Things like what the client's trying to solve, a few key frustrations they mentioned, and some possible directions we discussed. Stuff like wanting to stop missing leads after hours, or the idea of using AI chat to handle first contact. Once I hit submit, the form data is captured in a connected Google Sheet, and that's what kicks off the automation. From there, the system sends the input through to OpenAI, which takes those scrappy notes and turns them into a much more structured and detailed scope of work. It also generates a rough price estimate based on what was shared. That output gets passed back into the automation, and the workflow now knows which service type was selected. It uses that to grab the right base template, in this case, a chatbot's proposal template. Then the magic happens. The system dynamically fills in all the key fields: name, company, the AI-generated scope, and the estimated cost. And finally, the completed draft proposal is saved straight into our shared drive. From there, it's ready for review, tweaking, or sending. So what started as a few rough call notes and a couple of clicks becomes a clean, consistent draft proposal. Now let's talk about why a system like this actually matters. It's easy to think of it as just a time saver, and yes, it definitely is, but there's a bit more going on here. This approach removes the friction that normally comes with proposal writing. Instead of digging for the right template or starting from a blank doc, you've got a system that gives you a head start every time. First, it saves time over and over again. You're not writing the same structure from scratch or copying bits from old proposals. The system gives you a tailored draft in seconds. Second, it brings consistency. No matter who's creating the proposal, whether it's someone new or someone experienced, every draft follows the same format and tone. It makes everything feel like it's come from the same place. Third, the quality of the first draft is better. AI takes those rough notes and turns them into a clearer, more structured scope of work. So you're not just saving time, you're getting a stronger starting point. And finally, it reduces mental load. Your team doesn't need to spend their energy doing repetitive work. They can focus on the client, the strategy, and the parts that actually move things forward. It's not about replacing the human touch. It's about giving people more space to apply it where it matters most. Let's walk through how the system actually works, step by step. It starts when someone in the team has a new proposal to put together. Instead of jumping into a doc or asking someone else to start it, they simply open up the internal form. They fill in a few quick fields. Things like the client's name, the company, the type of service they're interested in, and a short description of what the proposal needs to cover. Once that's submitted, it triggers the automation workflow. The first thing the system does is take that description and send it to OpenAI. This turns those quick notes into a full draft of the scope, something more structured and ready to present. And it also provides an estimated price range based on what was mentioned. Next, the system looks at the selected service type and uses that to determine which base template to work with. Each type has its own structure, wording, and focus. So this helps make sure the proposal is aligned with the right offering. From there, the AI-generated content and the rest of the form inputs are dynamically inserted into the document. Things like the client's name, company, scope of work, and estimated cost, all placed into the right spots in the template. Once everything's filled out, the completed draft proposal is saved to a shared folder in Drive. And just like that, The proposal's ready. A clean, consistent first draft, created in under a minute, and no one had to start from scratch. Before we dive into the build, here's a quick overview of the tools we'll be using, and what each one does at a high level. First, Google Forms. This is what we'll use to collect input from the team. It's quick to set up, easy to fill out, and works well for structured internal processes like this. Next, Google Sheets. Every form submission lands here. It acts as the connector, giving us a clear record of responses and allowing the automation to trigger based on new entries. Then there's make.com. This is the automation layer. It's what connects everything together, moves data between tools, and handles the logic behind each step. No custom code needed. We're also using OpenAI. This is what takes rough notes or a short description and turns it into more polished content, like a scoped proposal draft and estimated pricing. And finally, Google Docs. That's where the proposal gets created. The templates live here, and the final document is something the team can easily review, edit, and send. These are all tools that are widely used, flexible, and easy to work with. And together, they let us build a system that saves time and keeps things consistent. Alright, let's start by setting up the Google form that will collect the initial proposal details. First, head to forms.google.com and create a new blank form. Give the form a title, something simple like internal proposal request, so it's clear what it's for. Then we'll add our 4 key questions. The first one is company name. Set this as a short answer question. Next, contact name. Again, short answer. Then we'll add type of service. This one should be a multiple choice or drop down, depending on your preference. In my case, I've entered the options: chatbots, workflow automation, personalized experiences, content creation, document processing, and strategy. And finally, we'll add short description. This one should be a paragraph field, since it's where a team member will write in their rough notes. Once the questions are in, switch over to the Responses tab and click the Google Sheets option in the top right to link the form to a spreadsheet. With this setup created, all submissions will land in here, and it's what we'll use to trigger the automation later. Then head over to the Settings tab. Under Question Defaults, make sure the option to make questions required by default is turned on. That way you don't have to toggle it for each field individually. Finally, when you're ready to share the form, click Publish in the top right. By default, this will share access to anyone in your Google Workspace. This is a great way for anyone in the company to have access. However, if you need, you can refine that further if you only want specific people or teams to have access. And that's the form setup done. Now that the form is set up, let's take a quick look at the Google Sheet that was automatically created when we linked the form to it. By default, the sheet includes a timestamp column and one column for each question we added in the form. So you'll see company name, contact name, type of service, and short description listed across the top. For the most part, this sheet is just here to hold the raw input. But we're also going to add a few extra columns that will be used later in the automation. These include the AI scope content. This is where we'll drop the expanded scope that comes back from OpenAI. And document drafted. This is just a status column, so we know which proposals have already been processed and had a document created. Go ahead and add those 3 new columns to the right of the existing ones. You can leave the cells blank for now. They'll be filled automatically later in the workflow. This step might seem small, but it's important to define these fields up front so we have somewhere to send the outputs once the automation runs. Before we move into the automation build, let's take a look at one of the proposal templates. This one's for chatbots. At the top, you'll see the basic company info followed by fields like company name, contact name, and date. These are the dynamic parts. The system will replace each of these with the actual values from the form and the automation. As we scroll down, you'll see a few different sections that outline the purpose of the proposal. There's an overview, which introduces what the document is about and frames the opportunity. Then a Why Chatbots section that helps build the case and highlight common use cases. Further down, there's a section for the proposed scope of works. And this is where the scope variable sits. This is the content generated by AI based on those short notes entered into the form earlier. At the bottom, we have an estimated investment section, which uses the estimated cost placeholder. This gets filled in with a rough price range, again based on the AI output. Throughout the whole template, you'll notice it keeps a consistent tone and structure, but it's still flexible enough to adapt to different client needs just by changing the input. The placeholders are all wrapped in double curly brackets, and that's important. This is how Make.com knows exactly what to look for and what to replace when it creates the final document. Once these fields are filled in, the result is a clean, on-brand proposal, without the team needing to start from scratch every time. Now that we've got everything set up, let's move into the Make.com scenario and build the automation that brings this system to life. Start by creating a new scenario, and the first module we'll add is Google Sheets. Watch rows. This monitors our form response sheet and triggers the workflow every time a new submission comes in. Make sure it's connected to the right spreadsheet and is watching the correct tab. Next, we'll add a router. This lets us branch the flow based on which service type was selected in the form, like chatbots, workflow automation, or strategy. Each route will handle its own template and logic, but the structure stays consistent. Inside each route, based on the selected service type, the first step is to generate the scope of work. We're using an OpenAI module here with a structured system and user prompt. The system prompt tells the model it's acting as a professional AI consultant, drafting scopes of work for chatbot proposals. It sets the tone and defines the goal: to take short, internal notes and turn them into something structured, professional, and client-ready. The user prompt includes a few things: the service type selected in the form, the raw notes or description from the team, and some context about us, an Australian AI consultancy that builds intelligent chatbot solutions. It also outlines what our chatbots are typically used for: answering FAQs, qualifying leads, booking appointments, and responding instantly across multiple channels. The goal here is to help the AI understand how we work, so it can generate a scope that feels accurate and tailored, not just generic benefits or fluff. Once the scope content is generated, we move to the next OpenAI module. This one generates an estimated price range. The system prompt here tells the model it's estimating price ranges for chatbot projects, and it gives instructions to return a ballpark estimate in the format X thousand Y $1,000, with no extra explanation, just the number. In the user prompt, we include the same service type, the generated scope from the previous step, and additional context around our pricing, how project complexity affects cost, and what kind of range most chatbot projects fall into. This helps the AI give an estimate that's grounded in how we actually price, without overpromising or creating confusion. With the scope and cost generated, we then move on to Google Docs, create document from template. This is where the proposal is actually assembled. We start by selecting the correct template based on the service type, and then we map in all the variables. We also include the current date, and that's done using Make's built-in functions. We use the format date function alongside the now variable to get today's date in a clean, readable format. That value is then inserted wherever the date tag appears in the template. For the document title, we'll use variables from the form submission. In this case, we'll have service type proposal for company name. This gives each proposal a meaningful, consistent name when it's saved into Google Drive. And finally, once the document is created, we use a Google Sheets update row module to log everything back into the spreadsheet. Using the row number from the initial watch new rows module, we can update the AI generated scope and the estimated cost fields with the generated content, and flag the row as drafted so the team can see which submissions have already been processed. And that's the entire flow. There's a bit involved in getting it all set up, creating the templates, shaping the right context for OpenAI, and connecting everything together. But once it's in place, it gives you a fast, consistent starting point for every proposal. So that's it, a complete system for turning quick internal notes into a fully drafted business proposal using AI and automation. This kind of setup doesn't just save time, it creates consistency and gives your team a much stronger starting point. If this is something you're looking to implement for your company, at AIWise we do this day in, day out. So feel free to reach out if you want help getting something like this up and running. Thanks for watching, and if you found this useful, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe for more AI automation tutorials.